Yo, what is up, y'all? It's Cone back here again tonight with another episode of After the Buzzer, the show where I recap the NBA games from the night. Two playoff games to get into. I know once again I'm making this video on the night where the Suns Mavs and Sixers Heat series went on, but it's just, I promise I will get to the other two series. It's just been a lot of busy one night off the next one, and so tomorrow before the games, I'm going to try and drop a video to talk about those series to give you my takes heading into tomorrow's game. So if you're looking for that, it will be coming very shortly. But let's go ahead and talk about these two series. Real quick, please leave a like and subscribe if you do enjoy trying to hit 10K before the end of the playoffs. We're going to start off with talking about Suns Mavericks, and honestly, if I had to sum up both of these games, the theme of tonight was three-point shooting. Three-point shooting really was the success of the Mavericks and the downfall of the Heat, so I'm going to kind of go over that a little bit, but three-point shooting was huge today. One of the things that I mentioned in my preview video for the Dallas Mavericks in this series was that they had to hit their threes. When Luka's doing well and the Mavericks are hitting their threes, it's hard to beat them, and that showed today with the Mavericks winning by 10 points against the Phoenix Suns, 111-101. They were just lights out. Dorian Finney-Smith especially was a monster shooting the ball. He had 8 threes. It felt like he never missed. Every time he shot the ball, it felt like it was going to go in, and it went in way more than it didn't. So he had a phenomenal game. Luka had 26, 7, and 11. Dinwiddie had a pretty solid performance with 10, 4, and 4. Bertans started off 4 for 4 from 3. Maxi Kleber played well. They were just drilling their threes to the tune of hitting 20 of them. If you're wondering what the NBA playoff record is, it's 24. So they were pretty close. I think they had 14 at halftime. So they were on their way to the record and then slowed down a little bit. Another one of the bigger stories in this one was Chris Paul, who last game he really struggled, and so coming into this one, I figured he'd bounce back, because that's kind of just the way Chris Paul is. There aren't many times where he's going to have two really bad games back to back, but it happened. The Mavericks really frustrated him, made things difficult, and more specifically, got him in foul trouble. Last game, he started the first half with 7 turnovers. Today, he had 4 fouls by the end of the half. He had 3 fouls, and then Monty Williams put him back in for like a little section at the end of the first half, which was a weird decision to me. It didn't really make sense. And right at the buzzer, he picks up his 4th foul, trying to go after his own rebound, ends up bopping Luka Doncic with his hip and just sends him to the floor, getting his 4th foul. He picked up his 5th foul with like 9 minutes to go in the third quarter. So now there's 21 minutes left, and you're point guard, who is known for taking over games in the clutch when you're going to need him, he now has 5 fouls, and so he's not going to be able to play. And the Suns did kind of keep up decently, but in that fourth quarter, Chris Paul comes back in and he fouls out, I think, with like 8.5 or 8 minutes left in this game. And Cameron Payne really hasn't been great over the course of these playoffs or even the season as a whole, so he wasn't really doing his job. And just without Chris Paul, they don't have that consistent like grounding force that the Suns typically have. Part of the reason why they're so good in the clutch like they have been all year is because of the play of Chris Paul, who really slows things down, gets them organized, gets guys great looks, as well as himself, of course, but not having that stabilizing force, it really showed in this one. The Mavs continue to hit threes. The Suns did make it kind of close, coming within, I believe, 5 or 6. It just wasn't enough for the Mavericks, who were just destroying them with a 3-point barrage, getting to the basket. It was a tough loss for the Phoenix Suns, and now this series is tied up 2-2. The Suns are going to need Chris Paul to bounce back in a big way, and I would be surprised if he doesn't. It's Chris Paul. He's not going to stay down for very long. The Suns also this year did not lose 3 games in a row all season, so this is a pretty tough task for the Mavericks heading into this game 5, the pivotal game 5 that people always look at as kind of the most pivotal game in every series. The Mavs are going to need another great effort like this. They've played phenomenal for the last 2 games, and the way that they've played is why I said I don't think it's impossible that they win this series when I first talked about it. Because if they're hitting their threes, if Luka's playing well, and he's getting some help like he has the past couple games, with Jalen Brunson having a great game last time, tonight Dorian Finney-Smith playing really, really well. Brunson didn't shoot great, but overall played pretty solid. Got some good play from the role players, and having the ability to really stifle and make the Suns uncomfortable on the offensive side of the ball. It all in all, if you're able to put those things together, the Mavs can put together wins. It's now a question of, can they continue to replicate that formula, because it's been really hard for any team to consistently beat the Suns this year. The Mavs have shown that they have a formula, but can they keep it going, and how are the Suns going to respond? I'm really curious to see what Monty Williams brings out of his coaching bag coming into game 5, how he switches things up. Does Jason Kidd preemptively get some things ready to change if he needs to? We've seen this series get really chippy and physical, which kind of feels like it's been a common theme across the playoffs as a whole. I don't know if that's just me, but it feels like this series, Golden State versus Memphis, like Boston versus Milwaukee, like the only series that hasn't been super physical has been Sixers versus Heat, which is weird because I feel like those fan bases, I thought it was going to be kind of a physical, toxic series for part of it, and it really hasn't been. So 3 out of the 4 series have been really physical, guys getting in each other's faces, Luka talking trash to Chris Paul, of course, talking trash to the other guys. It's been a lot of talk back and forth, and so I'm really excited for this game 5. I think it's going to be electric, but shout out to the Mavericks. They were a team that, going down 0-2 to the Suns, it would, for most teams in this league, would be a death sentence. But the Mavericks found the ability to turn things around. They found a formula that works. They got blown out in that game 2, and they immediately came back around, won game 3, took game 4 in pretty convincing fashion. They're on a roll right now, and if they can keep this momentum going, there's no reason why they can't go into Phoenix, take that game 5. So I'm really excited to see how things go. Shout to Dorian Finney-Smith, man. I love undrafted players. Of course, big Thunder fan, if you couldn't tell. Somehow I always forget where that banner is in the camera, but Lou Dort being an undrafted guy, just really, I've grown to appreciate undrafted guys so much, and so seeing Dorian Finney-Smith ball out, he's been phenomenal, got that bag in an extension over the course of this year, which he 100% deserved. So shout out to him, shout out to the Mavericks, who are doing really good things. They're on a roll, and 2-2 going up against the #1 team in the NBA this season, it's a pretty good place to be. Next, we had Sixers versus Heat, and this is a series that has really shifted completely, similar to the other one, but, you know, for different reasons. Suns Mavericks, the Mavs kind of just found a formula that started to work, and they really kind of found a way to make the Suns uncomfortable. They got some bad performances from the star player Chris Paul, or one of 2 star players for the Suns in Chris Paul. For this one, Joel Embiid came back, and ever since he came back, this has been a completely different series. He has been phenomenal, impacting the game in so many different ways. Tonight, he had 24, 11, and 2, continuing to be a great defensive presence. Danny Green, when Embiid has played, has turned into like prime Klay Thompson, which has been crazy to see. But James Harden is the guy I really want to talk about in this game. He was so good. He had 31 points, 7 rebounds, and 9 assists. This is the game we've been waiting for. The whole time that James Harden has been here through this playoff run, we've been waiting for one of those games where James Harden takes things over, takes the load off of Embiid, because in these fourth quarters, it's almost always had to be Joel Embiid. Sometimes it was Tyrese Maxey, but we haven't seen one of those vintage James Harden takeovers like he's done so many times in his career. Part of the reason why I thought Philly had a good chance to come out of the East when they picked up James Harden was his ability to shoulder some of that offensive burden, get it off of Embiid's back, and we haven't really seen that up to this point. And then tonight he went crazy. I think he had 13 or 16 points in this fourth quarter. He had 5 threes, hitting step back threes over guys left and right, driving to the basket, finishing, getting the crowd going, hyping everyone up. It was so cool to see. It was a vintage James Harden moment, and I think having Embiid back, I also think James Harden is getting a little healthier as he continues to play, just gets more into rhythm, and starts to figure things out for himself offensively, continues to learn what his role is. But I think having Joel Embiid back is such a huge boost for him, giving him the ability to not get double teamed as much as he was in the first 2 games, having someone to play off of a little bit more, just someone to take some of that pressure off. And when Embiid and Harden are both playing like this Sixers team is really hard to stop. When James Harden is locked in, scoring like we've seen him do in the past, it's hard to beat Philly. Because Philly is a good team. They've got good role players, and they've got these 2 stars. And if Harden is playing like a superstar player, like he did tonight, you can't beat Philly in many ways. It's going to take really good games. And especially with the way the Heat have played through these last 2 games, you're not going to beat Philly if James Harden continues to play like this. Jimmy Butler has been so good in these playoffs. I made a video right before the playoffs talking about the Heat, and I said one of my biggest worries for the Heat was, could Jimmy Butler be that one option on a championship team at this point in his career? And that now looks like a very dumb take, because he's been so damn good. He's averaging 29 points per game, rebounding well, scoring efficiently as well, not just from the field, shooting over 50% through his first 8 playoff games, but also shooting over 35% from 3. He's been really, really good, playing great defense. Tonight he had 40 points, 3 rebounds, and 6 assists, but nobody's really helping him. Bam Adebayo did have a good game with 21, 7, and 4, but outside of that, PJ Tucker only 7. Not that he scores that much anyways, but like Kyle Lowry, 0 points last game in his first game back from injury, 6 points and 7 assists tonight. They need something out of him. They need him to score more efficiently, and it is only his second game back from injury, but they're going to start to run out of time. This is now an even series, and the Sixers have all of the momentum. Some people don't really believe in momentum in sports. I do. I think that it is very tangible that Philly feels like I'm sure in the first 2 games they thought to themselves, if we had Embiid, we could have pulled these games out. And now they're seeing, hey, we have Embiid, we've won both games he's played. They probably feel super confident. The Heat, I'm sure, are a little bit wavered. They're not going to be super wavered because it's a mentally tough team, but I'm sure some of that is like, oh shoot, this thing has completely flipped on its head. And when like Tyler Hero's only putting up 11 points, he's been kind of meh through the start of the playoffs. Victor Oladipo did have 15 in 32 minutes, so shout to him having a decent game, but they just couldn't hit threes. Duncan Robinson, I'm surprised he got no minutes in this game. I know he's been getting DMPs for his defense, but in this one, it just really felt like they needed somebody to knock down a 3-point shot sometimes, and they're paying Duncan Robinson $90 million to do that. So even if he comes in and he gets cooked for a little bit, who cares? You're getting cooked anyways. You might as well bring in a guy in Duncan Robinson who can give you some kind of spark. He can hit some threes for you. They really needed something offensively to turn this game around, because it was just basically Jimmy Butler going and kind of taking guys one-on-one and scoring, and if he wasn't doing that, they weren't putting the ball in the basket. It was very rare that they were getting buckets down the stretch if he wasn't doing a lot of the work. Bam started getting into foul trouble, so he got a bit more passive. He did have some buckets at the end, but you need more scoring, you need more shooting. And if Tyler Hero's not doing it, he's already not a great player defensively. Put in a guy like Duncan Robinson who can maybe knock down a couple threes or just do something for you. They really could have used that shooting, I felt like. And that's like one of my rare criticisms of Eric Spoelstra. I was surprised that Duncan Robinson didn't get any minutes. Maybe Spoelstra didn't want to go to a guy who hasn't played in a little while in such a pivotal game, in a game where it really did kind of come down to the wire at the end. Maybe that was the reasoning. Maybe we see him next game. But to me, it felt like maybe he could have gotten some minutes in this one. They just have to knock down their shots. Philly has done such a good job of making them take really tough buckets, making them really work for their points, and that is part of the physicality that I've mentioned in these playoffs. The Sixers are being physical, they're attacking, they're really forcing them to go through their first, second, and third options on offense before Jimmy Butler finally gets them a bucket. And if they're going to have to keep working this hard, Philly's going to really push this series. Heading back to Miami, Philly, like I said, has a ton of momentum. The Heat have got to turn things around. They need more from Kyle Lowry. They need more from Tyler Hero. Jimmy's doing everything out there. He's carrying this team right now. So shout out to Jimmy Butler. He's playing really, really well. Shout out to James Harden. And once again, shout out to Joel Embiid just for playing through all that he's playing through. It's crazy to see. So those are my thoughts on tonight's games. Let me know what your big takeaways were. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you did enjoy. If you made it to the end of the video, drop the beard in the comment section below to let me know that you made it to the end. But for right now, I will see you all later. Real One, say it back.